I'm here to remind people how divine they are, how special they are, how unique they are, how gifted they are. If anything, I want everyone to sort of look at how wild my life is and how cool something like remote viewing is and understand that they can do it too. I'm not some sort of 6th-generational divine chosen one. I'm a human being struggling with all the human things, and I've learned how to teach my conscious mind to go wherever I want it to go.
Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast, a space dedicated to spreading the message that you have the power within to create everything you seek.
So if you're ready to enroll in a new kind of higher learning, the kind that leads to true personal freedom, then hang here with us.
We're your hosts, Rudi and Rudi Riekstins, and this is the InPowered Life. Welcome to the InPowered Life Podcast. My name is Rudi Riekstins. I'm your host, and today's episode is going to be about aliens, the Galactic Federation, remote viewing, and a very, very unique approach to anxiety. Today's guest lives with one foot in this dimension and one, well, very, very far beyond that. Elizabeth April is an intuitive channel and one of the most well-known remote viewers on the planet. From a very young age, around 2 years old, she could already see ghosts, read energy, and access information far beyond our 5 senses. At 18, she had an alien abduction experience that completely rewired her understanding of reality, but also created her mission on this planet. Elizabeth has devoted her life to decoding, well, what we call life, and to help navigate humans through this massive shift of consciousness that we're all living through right now, but to do it intentionally. And she bridges the gap between intuition and practicality and is helping ultimately a new generation move beyond just coping and to truly transform. She's a best-selling author of You're Not Dying, You're Just Waking Up, and her new book, Your Anxiety is Giving Me Anxiety. What an incredible title to a book. We're going to dive into this and so much more. Elizabeth April, thank you so much for joining us in the InPowered Life Podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Wow, what an introduction. That really summed up my life. I love that. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to get into a little bit of everything today.
You know, I was saying right before we hit record that I feel tremendous pressure every time I do anything in life because I know that we have these moments of time, and when you have somebody else's time and attention, it's time they're never going to get back. And when I have your time and I have the ear of the audience and I give them an opportunity to learn and to grow from what it is that we're doing, I'm always thinking of like, how do we best serve them, remind them of the divinity that we live in, of the magic and the mystery that is around us, and not just the lie that we've so-called led. And my question to you really is diving into all things you and the life that you've lived and the experiences that you've had, the abduction and having an alien experience at 18 is going to catch the attention of anyone that is not familiar with you, that hasn't heard of you. And I want to dive in there, but not for like the clickbait of, oh my gosh, I was abducted by aliens, because I believe everything that's happened in life is always serving the person that we get to become. And this obviously was such a powerful, pivotal role in your life to prepare you to become the person that you've come here to be. I would love to know from you, what was that overall experience like of firstly being abducted, and then more than anything, I would love to know, how did that experience actually literally shift your understanding of life, of who you are? I would imagine it changed everything for you.
Yeah, absolutely. It sure did. Leading up to that moment, that point in time, right? 18 years old, went away to a silent meditation retreat. I was sort of re-experiencing my spirituality and connections again. I had shut them off before that for quite some time, mostly because I wanted to fit in and like make friends and be normal, and so as a kid, that was kind of my survival mechanism, was to just sort of shut it all off and focus on this world and this reality and try and pretend to be happy for the most part. Around 18 is when I started deep diving into past life regression and deep states of trance meditation, seeing ghosts and spirits again, exploring lucid dreaming, definitely expanding my remote viewing abilities. So I was open at that point. However, if you asked me if I believed in aliens, I would say, yeah, I mean, it would be egotistical to think that we are the only intelligent life in the universe, but there's no way they're here. Like, there's no way a highly advanced interdimensional race is going to bother their time, their resources, their energy with us. Like, I really viewed us as like a very low level ant-like species back then. Sometimes, depending on the day, I might go back to that belief too. But I know we're not. I know we're highly advanced and we're just waiting to emerge into that advanced state. So aliens just never crossed my mind. Like, it just wasn't something I thought about. It wasn't something I read up on, even considered on this planet. So on the second night of this 10-day silent meditation retreat called Vipassana, I was abducted out of my room, sort of a communal living space for everyone who was meditating there. And I mean, what better place to abduct someone than on a silent meditation retreat where I can't tell anyone about it, in the middle of nowhere, like in the middle of the woods. And it was scary. Like, it was so scary. And it felt so entirely violating on not just a physical level that I was completely incapacitated, but on a spiritual level and beyond. So I was taken by a species called the tall whites. I would say they're probably around 6 or 7 feet tall, humanoid bodies, really like tall, skinny. It's almost like all of their limbs were stretched out, and their skin was so white, so pale, it almost looked translucent. Now, when they took me, I thought that they did something to my voice. But yeah, I'm pretty sure they just, I don't know what they did really, but I couldn't speak, I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything, but I had my eyes open and I was completely consciously aware of everything that was going on. I think a lot of my remote viewing and lucid dreaming and trance meditation allowed me to be consciously aware. I think probably most people forget those experiences for good reason. So I couldn't move, couldn't say anything. And during the experience, it must have only been maybe 15, 20 minutes. It couldn't have been long. There was a machine that they had, and essentially I could see it out of my periphery. I couldn't move and I couldn't feel it, but I could see it going into my right ear. And sort of in my mind, I'm like, okay, they put something in my ear. I couldn't feel it. I don't know if they left anything, but I just kind of had that intuition. Anyway, so that was the whole experience. And I ended up getting it validated by a medical medium not too long after that, maybe about a month after the abduction experience. I just showed up. I didn't tell her anything beforehand. She scanned my body. I was actually very skeptical of medical mediums in general. I can be a very skeptical person. And she's like, oh, you have an implant in your right ear. And she could see it immediately. And she sort of disengaged it or whatever she did, which I also did not believe and was very skeptical of. But immediately after that session with this medical medium, I felt like I was no longer being tracked, because that was the feeling. It was a feeling of, I'm being watched, I'm being tracked. I thought maybe they were body snatchers. I didn't know. That was my first experience, conscious experience with extraterrestrials, and it was bad. It was really, really negative, very violating, but it profoundly shifted my perception of reality. Holy shit. Hopefully I can swear. Holy shit. We're not alone here. Not only are they real, and I kind of base my belief system off of my direct experience, hence being skeptical and simultaneously curious. I don't really believe in anything until I have that one-on-one experience, which is why I don't read books and like listen to podcasts and other things in this field, because I want to keep my perception clear. But yeah, it profoundly shifted my understanding of human beings and who these other beings are. And I had so many questions. I mean, who are they? Why are they here? Why are they abducting us? Why are they experimenting on us? Why are they using their time and their resources on someone like us? And are there others, you know? And so now I can direct all of my spiritual abilities into answering those questions. So I'm 33 now. It's been well over a decade of navigating, exploring, remote viewing, both on and off this planet, to deep dive into the nature of reality. And of course, the nature of the reality that we're all living in here on planet Earth, even just as 3D beings, which also very fascinates me. So it's a long story, but there you go.
Gosh, I mean, I bet you every single person that's listening to this right now is sitting on the end of the seat saying, what the F? And I am going to challenge everybody to go over to YouTube and actually watch the recording of this, because Elizabeth, you are the most, I'm going to dare say the word, normal looking person. You're not some crazy person that's saying some, like erratic story about something. But yet, when I listen to it, I'm like, wow, that sounds like something I would see in a sci-fi movie. I have a 10-year-old daughter, and she is beyond her years. And right before the interview, I said to her, I'm going to be interviewing someone, and this is who she is. This is what she does. And she was abducted at 18, and my daughter's mouth just dropped open. And she said, she was abducted by aliens? And I said, yes. And I was telling her a little more about it. And then she goes, that sounds like it comes out of a book. And I'm like, you know what? There are books that are written on these topics, but this is somebody who's living it and teaching it. And she's like, I want to watch that. Like, just so enamored, like her mind has been expanded to something completely different. And so coming back to the experience, but from a spiritual perspective, because I do believe we're spiritual beings and that all of what is happening to us is about our individual evolution so that we can turn around and impact humanity at large. You've come here to do something profound. I mean, you're hugely successful. You have millions of views of what you're doing. The world is ready for what it is that you have to offer, and you're an example of what that looks like. You had this abduction. Absolutely, it was scary, but it wasn't the first. There were multiple. You've had many other experiences. You now actually communicate directly with aliens, and you have the ability to be able to remote view this. There's like a whole world that's opening up to people. And I want to bring it back to, again, the abduction wasn't just you being randomly picked and then having had some experience. It was the opening of this evolution of who you've become. And so right up front, while we have the attention of everybody that's listening, you've come here to do something really big, something profound in the world. You've come here to change people. What would you, in your words, say is your purpose and or your mission?
Ooh, what a loaded question. And I've pondered that my whole life. I mean, even when I was a kid, I wanted to be a nun because I was raised Catholic, and I thought I could talk to God because that was my framework. And I thought that I was going to be a messenger for God for my life. And that was as a 6-year-old girl, that was my dedication. I would say to summarize my mission and what I'm here to do, I'm here to remind people how divine they are, how special they are, how unique they are, how gifted they are. If anything, I want everyone to sort of look at how wild my life is and how cool something like remote viewing is, and understand that they can do it too. I'm not some sort of 6th generational, divine chosen one. I'm a human being struggling with all the human things. And I've learned how to teach my conscious mind to go wherever I want it to go. And that's not something unique. We see that in declassified CIA documents. This has been a very well-practiced, well-documented thing that everyone can do. And I believe that if we can start off with something like remote viewing, we can then branch into different dimensions, quantum mechanics. We can go into obviously communicating with interdimensional beings, going into the past, because time is simultaneous, not linear. And we can explore our past lives and Akashic records. We can sort of connect with that collective consciousness too. I like to call it quantum uploading and downloading. At a certain point, when we're able to leave our body, we start to realize that we are not singular. We're multifaceted. And I think that's what I'm here to do. I think I'm here to be a reflection of a little bit of everything. I don't feel like I specialize in just one thing, even though people love, the whole alien angle. That's great too. But I'm really here to remind people that they're far more than just who they see in the mirror.
Hey, it's Rudi Riekstins here, and I want to ask you,
Have you ever wondered if there's more to your life and work than what you're doing right now? What if I told you that the universe is hiring and you were born to fill a role that will bring you true purpose and success? In my new #1 best-selling book, The Universe is Hiring, Discover the Role You Were Born to Fill, I'm going to show you exactly how to step into that role. This isn't just a book full of inspiration. It's a roadmap to help you start shifting into a more fulfilling life right now. You'll get clear on your unique purpose, learn how to align with your strengths, and take actionable steps towards the career and life that truly light you up. If you're ready to make a change and start living the life you were meant for, grab your copy today. Available anywhere you buy your books online or click the link in the show notes.
I want to go back so we can take leaps forward, because you've touched on something that was the whole point of me wanting to have you on the show, and that is to remind people that we have the power within. And you're bringing such a beautiful approach to it, which is ultimately what our listeners are here for. Your father was well-versed in hypnotherapy, and he took you through a series of regressions where you were able to go back and see yourself as an oracle and see yourself as priestesses and so on. And you've seen the progression of the soul coming in to impact humanity. The difference between then and now, in my vantage point, my wife and I have both had many, many different readings from people who have shared. We were like oracles of Delphi, and we've had these experiences. And I believe that there was a time when there were people like oracles who were put on a pedestal where people would come so they could access information, so they could create changes. But my belief is that today there's no longer a person on a pedestal. There are people that are now saying we're all of this. And that's what I love so much about what you do, and what drew me into what you do. I would love for you to speak into a little more, and knowing so many people listening to this have no idea what we're talking about when we say remote viewing or being able to jump timelines. I would love for you to explain what that is. And I also want you to kind of validate it a little bit, because I'm aware that remote viewing, you can do, double-blinded tests and prove it, and GPS coordinates. And I know there's going to be these analytical, people that are going to sit back and say, I smell BS. And I would love to bring them on the journey. And so could you introduce us to what it is? And then if you're open to it, kind of like, how would you support people in being able to identify that skill themselves?
Yes, great question. Okay. So for me, I actually never used the term remote viewing until probably 2 years ago. I have a hard time with the English language and labeling. I don't know what to call myself most of the time as far as a label. And so same thing. I mean, I called it astral projection for quite some time. This is something that I taught myself around 18 when I was doing past life regression on other people. It took a long time for me to get someone into a relaxed enough state where they could leave their body. No longer are they a 42-year-old husband. They are just a soul. And in that state, the past life regressionist can then direct that soul into whatever lifetime, is needed to explore and experience to gain a fractal of yourself back. Sometimes it's very traumatic. Sometimes it's really beautiful. But it's a part of that remembrance. But I was getting really frustrated at 18, realizing that there's a lot of people that are not willing to relax enough to get out of their body. And so how can I do my work in showing them who they are if they're not willing to get out? They're too attached, essentially. And so I asked myself, is it possible for me to sit down, close my eyes, get myself out of my body and explore their history and see where they've been before? So essentially, instead of 60 minutes of trying to remove them from their body, it took me 45, and then it took me 30, and then it took me 15. And now it takes me 2 seconds to close my eyes, set an intention, get out of my body, and go wherever I want to go. It's usually pretty surprising for people how quickly it is nowadays. But before, it took me years of practicing that state of being where it doesn't matter if my stomach is growling. It doesn't matter if I'm hot or I'm cold. It doesn't matter if there's a pain in my back because I'm sitting a different way. None of the physical sensations in my body exist when I'm in a state out of body. And so that's how I taught myself, was actually through past life regression techniques in a different way, in an expedited way. My whole thing is, how do I be most efficient and effective as a human being in this lifetime? Anyway, and so a couple of years ago, so I've been doing this for a while, right? And like I said, first, my curiosity was a lot like agendas and conspiracies and shadow government and what are they really doing behind the scenes, and the illusion of this matrix and the monetary system. And then it went to obviously consciousness and opening your third eye and releasing dimethyltryptamine in your pineal gland. And then it went to obviously aliens and who are they, what's going on, and how do I weave all of these things, and quantum mechanics, and how do I understand all of them as part of a whole, right? So it was last year, 2024 actually, where I asked myself, is there something that I can do, because I have this feeling of where I'm going, is there something that I can do to help the world? I don't want to say believe me, but essentially, how can I prove that I'm doing what I'm doing unequivocally? I stumbled across a remote viewing institute. So there are many schools around the world who do this, which is so cool. I didn't even know this was a thing. And essentially, each institute, each school takes a different sort of remote viewing approach. The one that I found is called the Farsight Institute. They're one of the most well-known. And essentially, they take CIA techniques. So they take this from like old sort of military techniques. It's called scientific remote viewing, or SRV, and it's a blind style of remote viewing. So essentially what they do, and what they used to do in the CIA, is they would take these remote viewers. They say that the programs are disbanded. I obviously believe that they're still going on. I have my own reasons for those beliefs. But essentially what you do is you work with another person, and that kind of makes the test blind. And that person gives you a random series of numbers. It's usually an 8-digit a series of numbers. The numbers mean absolutely nothing. They're not longitude, latitude. They're connected to nothing. But the tester, the person who's giving you those coordinates, that's linked to a location. And so in order to kind of prove this, you kind of sit in a blank room. You have no contact or prior communication with the tester. They give you the series of numbers. And then through a series of different techniques, you kind of tune into those numbers, tune into the location, and you end up drawing a picture and obviously getting elements of the location as well. And then you're either, it's you fail or you pass. You're either on target or you're off target. There's no in between. So in my mind, I thought to myself, if I could show up in a blank room at any given time in my future and prove to people that I'm on target, that I can get a blind set of numbers and target that location, it's going to prove my gifts and my abilities. So when I say, yeah, I am going off planet and talking to extraterrestrials, and as crazy as that sounds, it's actually happening because I can prove myself. So I ended up, I think I've gotten about 15 different targeted locations and series of numbers. I've been 15 for 15. I've been on target every single time in the SRV scientific remote viewing method. Which is, I honestly didn't know if I could do it. So I'm very proud of that. And then there's a 4-hour double-blind exam that you have to take in order to become a certified remote viewer in SRV. And of course, I took the exam. I am completely certified as a remote viewer. And so for anyone sort of doubting it, please look into remote viewing. It is a very legitimate sort of methodology that anyone can get into. I think that people who are a little bit more well-versed in meditation and mindfulness are going to have a bit of an easier time tapping in, but anyone can remote view, and that is the coolest thing. And some of my targets took me off planet. Some of my targets took me into different timelines, like Nikola Tesla's laboratory, which was so cool. So it's just, it's super fascinating.
So for remote viewing, is that very similar to different psychic abilities where somebody sees versus smells or hears? Like, do you step into a room, time, or space and you see everything like you're seeing me now? Or is it more that you're sensing and it feels more like a regression where it's imaginative?
That's a good question. I mean, I think there's all elements. I think probably different remote viewers have different elements that are stronger for them. What was so fascinating was in scientific remote viewing, they taught me that I can feel the outside of a building, or I can smell the air. And one of them was a NASA rocket launch. That was the target. I didn't know that, obviously, at first. And I kept smelling the air, and I smelt like this very strong burning smell. Like my nose, it was like my nose, it was like a stinging sensation in my nose. And I was very confused about that, obviously. But before I took this sort of remote viewing course, I didn't realize I could use my 5 senses in different locations to feel the temperature of the air, which is pretty wild. So yeah, for me, that was very new, but because I'm very clairvoyant, it was very obvious, like visually, everything came through very visually for me. So that's where sort of me depicting and drawing pictures of what I was seeing came through very clearly. But for others, it could be more of a sensing.
I've had a number of past life regressions. I've done life between live regressions with my wife, like just incredible experiences. And I'm, like you had said, I'm going to use the word analytical. Like I was more observing and then saying, well, I didn't really get anything verifiable. I don't have any facts. I didn't see something. I'm not very clairvoyant. I didn't have this apparition it was just more of like a knowing or a feeling. And so I pushed and resisted it away. And I had one at one point. My wife had bought me one. We were on vacation in Austin, Texas, and she said, "Oh, I've set you up with somebody. We actually have had this appointment for a year. It takes forever to get in." She's like, "And I didn't want you to know, and you're going tonight." And I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." And when I went in, I was having the same experience, lying there, took me to a really deep state. And then she said, "What do you see?" And I said, "Nothing. I don't see anything." And she said, "Okay, why don't you just look down at your feet with your eyes closed, look down at your feet. And what does it feel like your feet look like?" And I was like, what a stupid question. What does that mean? And then I said, "I'm wearing sandals." And I was like, what? And then I started to just like actually dress myself all the way up. And then I had this unbelievable experience that then led me to get the validation through so many. And I want to speak to the people that are listening to this right now that they don't have the context. They don't have any way of doing it. What is it that you offer in your programs and in your community that really supports people in, I'm going to say, going from curious to like actually excited to dive into some of these aspects of your work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say like maybe 60 or 70% of what I produce and put out there now is information based, because I believe that when people hear a piece of knowledge and information that is universal truth, and even that word truth is, it's hard to sort of pinpoint that word in an objective way. But regardless, let's just call it universal truth. Regardless if I'm saying it or the words that I use, it's true for everyone. And so I believe that the information I produce and put out there is connected to that higher universal truth, and it sparks something in someone. It unlocks them. It activates them. And so I produce a ton of videos that some are really interesting, sort of remote viewing videos, just more entertainment, like remote viewing Justin Bieber, for example. Just that's pure entertainment, but it's also really fascinating. Remote viewing underground military bases. Obviously, current world events I'll remote view, or the soul contracts of Donald Trump, for example, or remote viewing 3-Eye Atlas, things that people are curious about and talking about. Okay, well, let's go beyond the headlines and really take a look at what's happening here. So I'll do all of that. And then, of course, I talk about a lot of soul stuff and empowering stuff, and now a lot of mental health stuff because people are struggling. So if you go to my website, you'll see pretty much every single video I've ever produced, which is thousands. And those are all activators and unlockers and also just curious things that I'm into. And of course, I have like alien channelings and remote viewings as well there. And then I have like courses and workshops, which are all very reasonably priced. Pretty much everything on my website is $11 or $22 because I believe in accessibility. And that's where I kind of teach people how to empower themselves. I guide them into an experience. So, for example, one of my workshops is the astral travel workshop. It's essentially a remote viewing workshop. It is all of the techniques that I applied to myself back in the day to get myself to remote view is what I've put in that workshop. And so I do have sort of more action items on there as well. But I do believe that it's no longer a time to hold someone's hand. If someone wants to have an experience beyond this reality and they're ready for it, they will have that experience. But I do believe that whether it's a Reiki session or a past life regression, I believe in exploring all the modalities, everything this world has to offer, whether it's plant medicine or deep states of trance meditation, great. But also understand that that therapist or that Reiki practitioner or that person or that teacher or that channeler is never going to be the end goal, right? Just a stepping stone, just a piece of you reclaiming your fractal so that you can understand that you are all of it and none of it.
That makes me love you even more. We're listening to the InPowered Life podcast because you, as the listener, you have the power within you. And I named the podcast that because for the longest time, I was seeking external validation for me. I needed someone else to validate me. Somebody else was the power. Somebody else was the authority. You go to the psychic or you go to the whoever to give you something, but that always leads you back to somebody else has to help you, whereas we can't help ourselves. And that's really what drew me into your work was you're constantly showing people that there's a whole other reality, a whole other world, a whole other way to live. I want to go back to the aliens for a second, but more so targeted specifically to the Galactic Federation. And, this is something that you talk about a lot. If somebody is curious about it, they can just binge you in any form. There's so much content. But I would love to know what you feel is the most prevalent message for humanity that you're getting from the Galactic Federation right now at the time of this recording, and the episode coming out, we're going to be, 6 or so weeks from the end of the year of 2025. And I think that we're in such an incredibly powerful time of the year, time of humanity. And I would love to know what is the burning message that they are constantly sharing with you that would help us understand, why do you have this incredible life journey of them utilizing you and your skills in this way?
Yeah, let me back up for a hot second with the Galactic Federation because it could be a lot for some people. Let me say that the Galactic Federation is a group, an organization of many different extraterrestrial beings. And I kind of look at them as sort of the policing arm of this galaxy and this universe. There are universal laws to abide by, such as the law of non-intervention. It does sound very sci-fi, but it's a real thing. And there are many other beings in the universe who don't want to abide by those laws and those rules and take advantage of others' resources or just others who are at sort of maybe a lesser level of evolution. So I was really disappointed to find out about the Galactic Federation at first because I was studying global politics in university at the time. And man, I really thought they could figure it out up there. It's like, really? You're telling me you're an interdimensional, galactic, highly advanced being and you still need structure? Like, you're saying there's still good and bad out there? Like, you still need to be organized? Like, I don't know. It's fine. I'm over it. But anyway, so that's the Galactic Federation of Light. That's sort of the main group of extraterrestrials I talk to. They're the benevolent ones. They're the good ones. They're here to support us and sort of, hold our hand through what's happening right now, which is a great awakening. And I know it sounds so woo-woo and so cheesy to say that, but yes, we are at a very special time to be alive on planet Earth. And so after my abduction when I was 18, I was greeted by a member of the Galactic Federation, and I had been talking and remote viewing them since then. And then I kept that a secret because I knew, I was like, there is no way I am ever going online and telling people I talk to aliens with my mind. That is insane. And I will never, ever be the crazy alien girl. I'm not going to do it. And then 2020 hits. And it's funny because I made a prediction in 2019, and it was that 2020 is going to change the world forever. People thought I was crazy for that. And the Galactic Federation told me, you need to get on a video and you need to tell people about us. And I said, no, find someone else. There's no way. And they said, no, like people need information right now because of what's about to happen. And so I did. And that video, reached so many people, which really kind of got me in the face of, the audience that I have now. So that's just kind of a backstory on my experience with them. And like I said, I'm a logical person most of the time, and I definitely did not want to tell people I was communicating with them. And so now what I used to do in private, in my own bedroom, which was have a conversation with them every month, get the inside scoop on humanity, on the awakening, on the individual. Now I do that live on Zoom every single month, and it's called the Galactic Federation Summit. And so people join me from all over the world as I live remote view them and ask them questions. What's going on planet Earth? What's going on with the individual human? What do we need to know right now? What's going on off planet Earth? And what do we need to be aware of? And so there actually is one overarching theme. I guess maybe two things. They're kind of the same, but kind of different. One is that there is an absolutely unprecedented shift that is taking place on planet Earth right now. At a more scientific level, if you want to be logical about it, we are getting hit with a ton of solar flares right now. And we're getting hit with something called like cosmic wind. And essentially what happens is when a supernova goes off, somewhere in our galaxy, there's a ripple effect of energy from that implosion. And that ripple effect is starting to reach our solar system right now. All this means is that we are getting hit with a high amount of electromagnetic frequencies. This is why we're having more aurora borealises seen everywhere, all over the world, in weird places that we'd never see them before, because we've got this influx of energy. Of course, we are energy beings. We are electromagnetic beings. And that energy is affecting us. And like I said, take the science out of it. Sounds super woo-woo, but that's awakening us. And let's just define awakening for a hot second here. I would define awakening in simplest terms as the conscious awareness of the self and the conscious awareness of the whole, right? Which is the same. It's one and the other, and it's together, two sides of the same coin. It's just more awareness. You break free of your 9 to 5. You start asking yourself, am I really happy? You realize you're not. You got to change your whole life, right? It's just conscious awareness. That's all it is. It's awareness beyond what we've been fed and programmed and taught to believe. And so there's an awakening that's happening, and we are at a precipice right now. We've got one half of the world who is just dipping into lower frequencies, more fear, more attachments, more materialism, more separation from self and source, or the connection of all, whatever you want to call it. And then you've got other people who are awakening. You've got lawyers and doctors and politicians who are all of a sudden realizing that their whole life has been a lie and that the only truth out there is energy, and they change everything. And they make it their mission to help others with that realization as well. And so you've got this huge division. And then sort of the second part of that is us awakening to our own power. So I truly believe you don't have to leave your day job in order to follow your heart and follow your mission. You could be a bus driver and make an incredible impact on this planet just by raising your vibration and smiling at every passenger who gets on, or holding a compassionate state for someone who's having a bad day. And so it's about us realizing that power. It's about us realizing that in order to step into a higher vibration and really enjoy the awakening and the shift, we've got to dismantle and get rid of everything that was no longer serving us, both at an individual and collective level. And this is what's happening right now in 2025. It is the great year of destruction, of dismantling, of chaos, of polarity, of purging, both at an individual and collective level. So if you're sitting there listening to this thinking this chick is crazy, but also, yeah, I lost my job, I got a divorce, I've lost all my money, and like this has been the year where I've really had to make a realization, or things have just been more challenging than usual. I mean, look at the state of the world. So it's the information that things are changing, but you're evolving to a state of more conscious awareness, which means that you're evolving to a state where anything is possible, right? Because we are the creators of this reality and the co-creators of this reality. So what's possible when you start to realize that you're a part of the whole and that anything is possible? I mean, it's really vast and infinite.
Gosh, there are thousands and thousands of questions that I would just love to ask you, because everything that you're talking about is, again, the most familiar, unfamiliar information to everybody. Like, we all know that at the root of it, this is our truth. And you're doing it in a way that makes it accessible to everybody. I have very intentionally today not gone into some questions that I would imagine the audience would immediately want to know. Like, you opened up about the abduction and something being put in your ear, and the first question would be, oh my God, is it still there? What does it do? What was the function? But I know that there are places that people can go to get the answers to this. If they just follow you and they watch some of your videos and your shorts and your reels, they can dive into and get the answers to what it is that they're looking for. When I started, I had said to you off camera, my intention today is to give everybody a sampling of what I think is the genius of you and your life and how you show up. And so I want to very quickly ground something for 1 second. And that is that through the entirety of your life, you have been put into moments where you've needed to step up and take great risk. I read a story of your father taking you and doing these regressions. And then at one point you go to him and you said, oh my God, I can do remote viewing. And your father says to you, never tell anyone because the government will take you. And then the Galactic Federation says, oh, you need to just share this message like it's nothing. And then you have this like, I'm not going to be that person. And yet you've done it. You've done it all. And you aren't, well, seemingly from my vantage point, fearful of sharing what it is that you're sharing and talking about government conspiracies and talking about the illusion and talking about the play of powers. And I want the audience to just, as they learn a little more about you today, ask themselves, where could they be a little more like that, a little more courageous? Because I want to point out something that is the underlining message in everything that you're sharing. You came here to be somebody very unique, and you're living up to that potential. And you've been put in positions that qualified you and prepared you to be who you are today. And at one point in time, you pushed it away, and then it came back and you explored it. And then you were given an opportunity to do something that was very scary and fearful, not once, but a number of times. And that it wasn't until you did it that you became known for who you are. You were able to create your impact. And I'm a high performance guy. I coach people all day long and they're like, I want to jump, but I'm so scared. And it's like, well, everything's on the other side of that fear. And I just want to commend you for a second and say how proud I am of you as a soul, looking at you, living your life so large and again, seemingly fearless, but I'm sure there's tremendous fear and trepidation in the process. And I want to pivot now because we're coming close to the end, and I want to talk about anxiety. The latest research says 85% of the population is living with heightened chronic stress more than 75% of the time. You have a very unique approach to anxiety. And I love the title of your book, super catchy, because your anxiety is giving me anxiety. And what I love about this is that so many people, they don't even know who they are and how they feel. So when they walk in a room, they take on somebody else's energy, somebody else's emotion, and then they live from that vantage point like it's them. And I would love to know, with all the wealth, all the knowledge that you have, I mean, the galactic knowledge, I'm so jealous that you have. What is your take on anxiety, and what could people gain from approaching it the way that you do?
Yeah, good question. I mean, just like my first book, this is not a book I ever thought I was going to write. I just, you got to love life for just surprising you every single turn. I'm not a mental health practitioner. I'm not educated in therapy or psychology. I do believe that we need to be outside of the system in order to change it. So there's that. But I'm also just a chronic anxiety sufferer ever since I was a kid. I had these extrasensory abilities, and yet I had so much anxiety. I had OCD tendencies. I had panic attacks, and that followed me throughout my entire life. And last year, I went through a series of anxiety attacks and anxious moments, and I started to deep dive into this and say to myself, I can't live like this anymore. And there are no solutions that fit with what I'm dealing with. And what I ended up finding with the current rhetoric and research on anxiety is that no matter it's meditation or medication, everyone is targeting the symptoms of anxiety. And yet no one can actually explain what it is or where it comes from. Now, because I problem solve in a logical way, in an illogical way, I guess, using remote viewing, for me, even when it comes down to, okay, you have a trauma, or maybe you have a weird birthmark. Okay, where does that come from? What's the cause of it? I believe that in order to heal something, we need to go back to the initial trauma, the initial cause. And that's what I did in past life regression. And then with anxiety, I'm like, if no one can explain what anxiety is and where it's coming from, then we have a really big issue. This is why everyone is targeting how to solve the symptoms with a breathing technique or a pill to pop, instead of actually going to the root cause to heal it for good. So this book is not a quick fix. This book is a reprogramming of your neural pathways. It truly is. And it's merging together the physical and the non-physical worlds in order to do it. I'm merging together the psychological, the biological responses with what anxiety is, which I believe is your intuition. I believe it's an energetic messenger. It is, I call it our spidey sense. It is that intuitive nudge that we usually ignore. And at the point where we're actually experiencing the symptoms of it, all the alarm bells are going off. And you're finally like, oh my goodness, okay, I should listen. It could be years in the making where you finally start to stop and listen. And so in this book, I exclusively target where anxiety comes from, which happens to be the past, the present, and the future. For example, the past could be like old traumas that we've never resolved. The present moment anxiety could be you watched something on the news and you didn't realize how much it affected you, but now you're carrying that with you for the rest of the day. Maybe you go to the grocery store and the cashier checks you out, but he's having such a bad day because his mom's in the hospital, and you're feeling all of that and you're not realizing that you're feeling all of that. And you go home and you have a panic attack and you have no idea why. So this book goes into the subtle energetic interactions that we all have, and where those interactions are coming from and how those interactions affect us, and how to then quantitatively navigate those interactions in a way that benefits us and not hinders us. Anxiety isn't a bad thing. It could be our greatest messenger, but we don't stop and listen to it long enough. So I have some very specific techniques in the book that help to sort of allow us to stop, focus, question it, identify it, neutralize it through objective observation and something called equanimity. And then how to then step into a state of mastery where we're now objectively aware of not only our physical reality, but all of the energetic interactions in between our physical reality enough that we can choose when to disconnect and when to connect with aspects of our reality. It's essentially like remote viewing on a quantum level. So this book is so much more than just a book on anxiety. And just like the title suggests, right, your anxiety is giving me anxiety. We're starting to emerge into an energetic world rather than just a physically dominant one. And this book is a really great introduction to people on how to manage the overwhelm of these energetic interactions.
I go into corporate companies and I teach the energetics in a way that makes sense to a business because they've hired me to grow their company. They want to make more money. And I come in and I say, well, let's start with self-leadership. And I introduce that we have 3 bodies that I'm going to talk about. I'm aware that there are many more. And I say there's 3 bodies I want to bring awareness to. You have your mental body, which is where you think your thoughts. Your mental body updates your physical body. Every thought produces a chemical. The chemical is emotion and changes the physical state. And then you have the energetic body that surrounds you, and that when you walk into a room, it's communicating on your behalf. And so we do energetic sales trainings where you teach people to change and curate. And all of this is done under the guise of you're not the human and you're living this incredible benevolent life, and let's bring awareness to it. And it grows companies beautifully and profoundly. I would love for you to dangle one more carrot for the benefit of the audience to get a copy of this book, because I've been following you for a while. I love how you show up and how you teach. And I would love for you to share one of your little tidbits, tricks, something that someone could implement right now that is experiencing anxiety. And I'm going to preface that question by saying you've already given them a gift, because you said that anxiety could be your greatest gift. And I actually think it isn't a could be, it is absolutely your greatest gift, because it's showing you what's happening unconsciously. It's showing you what you're spending your time thinking and feeling and where you're making decisions from. How would you support someone right now who is living in a state of anxiety, like they're having a deep night of the soul and they can't get out of it, and you want to help them find a little bit of peace and clarity?
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I've got 2 techniques. One is physical and one is non-physical. And they're both focused on present moment anxiety. And in the book, I go into past anxiety and the cause of that, and future anxiety, which is the spiraling mind at 3 a.m., right? But let's focus on present moment anxiety. The easiest physical thing that you could do, and you could start it right now after listening to this, is clearing out your physical space. We don't realize it, right? But every physical item we have in our lives is holding an energy. And it's kind of like all of a sudden your toddler is freaking out because you washed their favorite stuffed animal, not realizing that you washed away the energy of that stuffed animal and what have you, right? And so a cluttered mind, or a cluttered house, is a cluttered mind. And so whether it's your iPhone, right, and you want to clear out your apps, or your desktop computer and you want to clear out your files or your photos, that's just as important as going through that drawer you refuse to look at and clearing it out. Eventually, you want a place in your life, a home that you live in, that brings you peace and calm, right? I mean, call it feng shui, but this has been talked about for many, many, many years. And so the easiest physical thing that we can do to reduce your daily anxiety is to start clearing your space. Start clearing your environment, like cleaning out your fridge. Every time I go grocery shopping, I clean out my fridge, because for me, food is my love language, and I just need to see what I'm working with. And so that's important. So that's like the first physical thing. Is so practical. The book goes so deep into different practices that are almost too deep to just sort of seed plant here. But the easiest physical thing you can do is start to clear out your home, even if it's just one closet, and then you move into a room, and then you move into another closet, another drawer, another room. But slowly but surely, you got to clear out some of your space, because it's cluttering your head as well. The non-physical thing that I recommend you do is cord cutting. Probably a lot of people haven't heard of this. Some people have. It's definitely not a technique that I'm going to own and say I invented, but it's something that I started to see as a remote viewer way back in the day, that every remote viewer I interacted with, every sort of even interdimensional being I interacted with, had this weird cord that went from their astral body back to their physical body. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I would get off a live video on YouTube, and I would look at myself energetically, and I would look like a porcupine, because thousands of people from all over the world just energetically connected themselves to me. And I'm like, okay, well, I can't have that. I can't be walking around for the rest of the day with everyone's energy connected to me. It's a beautiful thing, but I need to set some clear energetic boundaries. So whether it's the bus driver, or it's the cashier at the grocery store, or it's your father-in-law, or whatever those sort of interactions are playing out in your own life, we have these energetic cords connected to everything. Sometimes we even have energetic cords connected to material things, especially material things that we feel are prized possessions. Energetic cords connected to our animals, our pets. So at the end of the day, we have all of these cords connected to all of these different areas. And not only is it draining our energy, but it's filling us up with energy, emotions, situations, thoughts, and feelings that are not our own. So at an energetic level, what we can do right now is mentally cut cords. Sometimes if you have a hard time visualizing or imagining something, then I recommend writing whatever you want to cut or release down. Could be a physical thing, could be a person, and burning that piece of paper. Or sometimes you can kind of tear it up. I do want to mention that just because you're cutting a cord doesn't mean you're getting rid of that person in your life. Okay. You can still, coexist with your boss at work. But if you feel like that energy is either triggering you or draining you, cutting that cord is just creating energetic space. So I go over that in the book as well as a really great technique and tactic for energetic clarity and boundaries, just like we have the physical clarity of clearing out our digital and our physical world.
I think that is so invaluable what you just shared. I have an art collection that I spent a small fortune on in my 20s. And my wife said to me recently, I want to sell all of the art. And I'm like, but I'll never get what I paid for it. And she's like, yeah, but energetically, what is it costing us, to have these paintings that have been in my home for 15, 20 years? And there's so much value in because you're not who you used to be. You're not attached to the energy of who you used to be. And so tremendous power in that. I cut cords every single day. A simple exercise for the benefit of the audience is I actually just close my eyes. I look up, I ask Archangel Michael, please cut and sever any connection to any cords. And I call back my energy back to me. All of that and more. I have a course on how to channel that I'm launching in the new year for the benefit of the audience that's curious about some of this to look into. But I want to draw them a little more into your world for a second here, Elizabeth. We're going to close the episode with this last question. And I'm going to throw in all your links to your website, to your book, to some of the programs that I think are absolute must starts for everybody, because I, again, just love what you're doing. And I think everybody is super curious at this point. But I have to ask a remote question. Who is like the coolest person that you've remote viewed, and what was like the coolest thing you took away from that overall experience?
That is a really tough question. I just did a whole series on remote viewing famous people in 2026. So every month I've got like a new famous person I've released. Some are just very dark and scary. Like I did Putin, I did Kim Jong-un, I did Oprah Winfrey, I did Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, I did Justin Bieber, I did Britney Spears. And so it was like just like a wide variety of individuals. I will say that as a remote viewer, I do have high moral integrity. Just because some people are like, that's not okay to remote view people without their permission. I always get permission. Usually from their higher self. Sometimes if someone is aware enough, I can get it from their conscious self. I would say one of the most fascinating, interesting remote viewing people and experiences I've ever had was actually with Kate Middleton. And I'm not even going to get into everything that happened, but let's just say, and this is like a whole other thing I never, ever wanted to publicly mention that I've seen and I believe, but it just kind of came about. It involves Kate Middleton and like a whole understanding of like cloning and what the shadow government is capable of and what they're doing, and like an inside scoop into even the royal family. So that was all throughout 2024 when Kate Middleton there was that AI video that came out, and then there was like her cancer diagnosis, and then there was something else going on. So I took a look just casually into what was going on behind the scenes, and I was not prepared for everything that came through. So that's like, I want to say an 8 or 9 part series over 12 months of remote viewing her and everything that came up with that, which was, like I said, out of everything I've ever channeled and remote viewed, that was probably the absolute most insane thing I've ever experienced to this day. So if you really just want your mind blown and you want to see me remote view live and get very, very shocked in the moment at what I'm remote viewing, then you want to check out the Kate Middleton video bundle I have on my website. Like I said, I think it's still only $11 or $22, super accessible, but pretty wild. Other than that, yeah, whatever you're curious about, whether it's quantum mechanics or chemtrails or shadow government or conscious awakening or anxiety, I pretty much cover probably all of your greatest universal questions on my website. So just go there and type in the video search, whatever it is you're interested in. We also have a forum and a great community of powerful teachers on there as well, that love to communicate and share their experiences. So so much to offer. And every day I wake up and I'm just so grateful to have this level of awareness and then to meet so many incredible people who are just on the same mission, doing the same thing in this mirror reflection. And it just gives me so much hope for humanity, especially at such a dark time. I really am grateful for this conversation and for you and for all the work that you do. And we're clearly on the same path using different words, but it's all the same frequency. And it's been very refreshing.
It has been such a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful conversation. I'm reminded throughout the entire conversation, you could be literally anywhere in the galaxy, and you chose to spend some time here with us today. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know I said it a little earlier and it sounds so cliche, but I love you. I adore the life that you're living, the example that you set for so many people. And for anyone that is curious, we're going to have all of the links in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. For the benefit of the audience, I'm going to challenge you, do something with the information that you've learned today. If you were triggered, this message is for you. If you were curious, this message is for you. And if you're somewhere in between, yep, this message was for you. We love you, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the InPowered Life Podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. And we would love your support in leaving us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Make sure to check the show notes for more information on how you can find us online and on Instagram. Now go create an amazing day for yourself, and we'll see you again soon.